Hey everybody, today I have a 1962 MGA 1600 MK2. 1962 MG, what a beautiful car. This is one of our regular customers. They come in and it needs a water pump. So we are going to get a water pump and put on it. Actually, he got the water pump himself and got it finally. This is really neat. You reach in through the door and there's this little cable here you pull to get the door open. There's an interior shot of the car. Absolutely beautiful car. A little 4-cylinder on it. So we're gonna do the water pump on it today. Let me show you all the parts he got for us. He's got the brand new water pump. It came with new bolts and a new gasket. He also got me an extra gasket and a water pump seal. He really didn't need the water pump seal, but that's inside the water pump. The instructions on how to do it, which is pretty straightforward. So we're gonna get to this and start working on it. The water pump is right here behind the fan. They say the bolt sometimes seize, so to make this so much easier for me, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the radiator out. So to pull the radiator out, you got a hose connection here, you got a hose connection there, you have 4 bolts down the side of the radiator, and the radiator should just slide out. So let me get the coolant draining on this, and we'll come back once I get the radiator out of the car. All right, I took off the upper radiator hose. I've taken off the lower radiator hose to the side. There are 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the fan shroud's gonna stay for now, and the radiator should just lift. Maybe the fan shroud isn't gonna stay because the fan shroud is hitting on the lower hose connection. See the lower hose connection down here, how it sticks out? That is keeping me from pulling up. So we might have to take the fan blade off now because I can't get this on the other side of the radiator. So I thought it was just gonna pull right out, but there's not enough room for everything to pull out. And I can't seem to get the fan shroud out. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the fan next. All right, I took the fan off. It has 4 bolts. Now I can get the fan shroud out. So there's the little fan shroud. Put the fan shroud there. That looks brand new. Don't want to break that. All right, and now it's time to lift the radiator out. And like I said, I just have to watch this lower hose connection, make sure it doesn't get stuck on anything. So, and there is the radiator, which looks like it's been repaired or something. So set the radiator. Now maybe it'd be better if I set it down. There we go. Reuse that. All right, so now we're at the front of the car. The water pump's right here, the belt's right here. The generator is bolted to one of the water pump studs. Reading the instructions, they say that these bolts that hold the water pump in go right into water jackets, and they might be very difficult to get out if nobody put any type of thread sealant on it, because originally they had no thread sealant on it. It looks like this has blue glue on it here, so it looks like somebody's had this water pump off before. So we are definitely going to hopefully they put stuff on the water pump. Oh, look at that, nice spacers. That's gonna be all fun to line up. So we'll have to check and make sure that this water pump is the same length as the other water pump, and see if we have to reuse these spacers or not. I might end up gluing these spacers in here to make it easier to line everything up. So there's that. I'll go ahead and pull the belt off. So what they look like. Let's see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten them a little bit, and then I'm going to loosen them. Okay, that one seems fine. Looks like somebody put thread sealer on the bolts. Same thing here. Let me get a shallow shot. Same thing here. I'm going to tighten it a little bit. Okay, that one did not tighten. So let's see if it will break free. Okay, that one broke free. I think I'm going to be lucky I think they put thread sealer on all the bolts. Yeah, all the bolts are coming loose. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and come over here. I'm gonna disconnect the generator. Yeah, it looks like there's that nut, and it probably will come right out. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything in the back, just that nut right there. Yeah, what size does it look like? Alright, so as you see, I got it loose enough to where it's pivoting now, so it looks like I should be able just to pop these bolts out on the generator, and then that should give me more than enough room to get the water pump out. So let's grab the and the new water pump came with new bolts, so I'm going to use the new bolts. And like I said, these bolts here are probably some type of British standard thread, so I don't want to take and put them in my nut and bolt collection because they won't fit anything. Yeah, see how rusty they are? Because they're in coolant. Come right out, right? Comes right out. There we go. And somebody's already changed it once, so they used blue glue on it. Luckily, they put you know, stuff on the threads so they came right apart. Yeah, look, it came pretty clean. I'm going to clean that up. Let's go over match this up with the old water pump.
The inside looks pretty clean.
So
good.
let's. Okay, actually this one looks a little, just a hair shorter than this one, so we'll go ahead and reuse those two adapters to try to keep the belt lined up. Here's something, if this is an original style water pump, check this out. It actually has like a plastic impeller on it. Never been a big fan of plastic impellers because what happens is eventually they could crack and then they'll spin on the shaft and the cars will overheat. This one actually has a metal impeller on it. So, all right, well, we're gonna go ahead and glue the new gasket to the pump. We're going to clean up the block and we'll start reassembling, and we'll be back. All right, so we got in here and we cleaned the gasket surface here up real good. The instructions say to be sure you clean this out because that's where the impeller sits. So here's a problem that I ran into with the new water pump. The new water pump came with bolts, but the problem is all the bolts are a little too short. So let's try this bolt. When this bolt goes in the hole, this is the original. See how far it sticks in? Of course, there's going to be a lock washer on, so let's pull it back. So see how far it sticks out? So here is one of the new bolts they sent me. It barely has any thread sticking out. So we're definitely going to be using the old bolt. Same thing here. See how far the threads stick through on that one? And here's one of the one new one. They hardly stick through. So we got the gasket gluing on this. I Teflon taped the new bolts because I didn't realize they were too short. So now I'm going to go ahead and we've cleaned these bolts up with the wire brush. We're going to clean up all these bolts and put some Teflon tape on them so they don't seize in for the next person that has to do this. And then we'll go ahead and get the pump mounted. Alrighty, we got the gasket on. We put a very thin coating of black silicone RTV on there. We have our old bolts cleaned up with new washers and lock washers and Teflon taped all the threads. And the two long ones go in this hole and this hole. So we'll go ahead and start with these two. We have our gasket all cleaned up and ready to go. So we'll just go ahead and plop this baby in here. Got that one started. Get that one started. Let me get the two short bolts. Like I said, Teflon tape, new lock washer, new flat washer. All right, now that one's tight. Now I don't know what the torque spec is on this. I have no specs on these, but these are basically 5/16 bolts. So I'll go on the internet and find out what the torque spec is on a 5/16 bolt and probably just use that. And then when we tighten them up, I'll do the bottom one, and I'll come up and do this one, and I'll do this one, and do this one. Let me go find a torque spec, and I'll tighten these up, and we'll continue on. All right, the 4 bolts, we torqued them at 9 foot-pounds. That's what the internet says to do 5/16 bolts at, so we torqued them at 9 foot-pounds. We have slid the radiator back in, slid the fan shroud back in. So now we're gonna take and try to get this radiator fan. I took some silicone. Somebody had made these adapters to make the belt line up properly. I don't know why, but we're gonna go ahead and sneak this in and try to get this thing lined up. There we go. Hopefully, okay, now I'm gonna take a bolt on the fan bolts and see if we're lined up. Screwing in. Yep, we're lined up there. All right. We're gonna sneak in here real careful, try not to hit the radiator, and get these 2 bolts in and started. Yeah, if I didn't use silicone on those adapters, I don't think it would have worked out. There's 2 of the bolts. Alright, we got all 4 bolts in there. We'll tighten them up and we'll get the belt. We'll tighten those up. We'll get the belt back on. We'll put the hoses back on. I'll get the radiator all bolted up. Let me finish this stuff up and we'll come back once we get the car running. Okay, now you're gonna think that this is a video in the wrong order, but it isn't. We all had it all back together and the water pump was pouring. And I thought maybe the water pump was bad. But come to find out, on this engine here, see this little cutout right here that comes down? Well, the water pump that he got, you can see right there, doesn't cover the whole hole. And the pump that was on it doesn't cover the whole hole, but somebody took and double gasketed it to make this water pump work. And this is actually where it was leaking on this pump. This gasket here failed. See all the some type of hard glue they put here to keep this one from leaking. So this actually is the wrong pump. Excuse me. This car's a 62. We seem to think that this has a different year engine and possibly a 74, so we are looking into it. But yeah, the pump wasn't covering that piece right there. The pump has to slope down. So we did a little investigating, and we think this is a 74 engine in this 62. So we're waiting for another pump to get here. Once a new pump gets here, we'll put it back together and see if that takes care of all the problems. There's some other problems too of this not lining up properly. And remember this thing here had all those, where's the pulley? It had, somebody had put all those adapters in there to space this out. I bet you the right water pump will be longer here and we won't need to use those spacers. All right, so we're in limbo right now waiting for another pump to get here. All right, well, it's been a couple days. I think we figured this one out. This is a 62 MGA 1600 Mark II, but this motor is actually like a 74.5 motor. So if you take this is the gasket for the new water pump, and you line it up, you can see right there at the bottom, right there, that it seals off that little passage. And then when you come up and you look at the new water pump, the new water pump is that much taller than the old one. So now whoever made those adapters for the fan to make the belt line up, I'm not going to have to use. So let me get this all apart and we'll end up where we left off with that one water pump that leaked like a sieve. So if you have one of these, you need the 74 water pump if it's got this little indent on the engine block. All right, well, we were wrong. Unfortunately, here's the water pump. It's got the right housing, but this pump will not fit in the block. The impeller is too big. So strike, another strike. So this pump isn't it. So we did a little bit more research on this. Come to find out, if you come back here to this, well, we wanted to get the engine number off it. Well, the engine number's gone. But see right there how you have, there's an 18. This is actually a 1800cc MGB engine from 1962 to 1964. We think. We're still not 100% sure, but we think it might be an MGB engine. So we looked up the pump for that, and that pump looks very similar to this pump with a smaller impeller. And there's not a very good picture of the bottom where we're leaking. So now we're gonna have to order another pump. So this motor is most likely an 1800 MGB engine, not an MGA engine. So we're just going slowly trying to figure it out. We had a friend of ours go and talk to the MG specialist place. And that's what he came to the conclusion of, and he didn't have a pump, so we're waiting for another pump to get here. Alrighty, well, we're back on this MGA. We got the pump for the MGB. So first thing I noticed is this is the new pump for the MGB. It's a 434000. It's a little bit longer, which is good. Then that means I might not have to use these adapters that somebody made. All right, so that's good. So let's grab the gasket. We'll grab the gasket, walk over to the car, and you can see right there that it covers up that notch really nice. So the gasket looks right. So now the next thing is will the impeller fit in, which I do believe it is. So, yep, there we go. Here, hold that for a second. All right, so that works, and it spins over. So this obviously is the right pump. It's got the smaller impeller. It's got the different housing here that covers this little notch. So finally, we got the right water pump, and we'll put it together and see how close the belt is lined up without the adapters. I'll do that before I bolt it all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it all back together, and once we get it all back together and up and running to bleed the cooling system, that's when I'll come back. But yes, finally, after 2 or 3 water pumps, we have finally figured out that this is the wrong engine in this car. All right, everybody, we got this thing back together. This is definitely an MGB 1800 engine. We got the MGB water pump in it, everything hooked up. The belt is lined up properly, so we didn't have to use the spacers. Where are the spacers? Where are the spacers? Oh, there they are. So we didn't have to use these spacers. So if you get one of these cars that the water pump is not working because there's not enough meat down here, and you have that indent on the motor, it must be an MGB 1800 motor. So there we are. I got it up and running. This car needs some carburetor work. The thermostat seems to be working. Temperature gauge is at 195. So I think I'm gonna leave this one here. So that's what the problem was, is that the wrong water pump on it since the guy has owned it. All right, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. If you subscribe, you can always do that in that corner. Please give me a thumbs up if you like my automotive videos.